That's right, nerds. Wake up. It's Saturday, and we are midway through our May Melee bracket. I'm Mitch Leslie here, joined by Matthew Morello. Today is the quarterfinals, bro. Let's get it.
I mean, I like to sleep late, but I mean, who's not up by now?
Me on any day that I'm
It's
not working,
it's like
to be honest.
3 o'clock on the East Coast. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody's awake.
Maybe not New York fans. Who knows? Been staying up watching those May matches, but here is where we are right now. In terms of our bracket quarterfinals, like I said it, 4 matches today. The first one, Matthew, San Francisco versus the Dallas Fuel.
Yeah, the Shock come in. No surprise as the #1 seed outside of a little bit of a rocky start at the beginning of the season. They've looked much better as of late. They've really hit their stride in terms of having a set roster in hero pools.
Yeah, again, you know, losing key players aside, they had so much talent just sitting on the bench there. Some of them just waiting for their chance to be, you know, main fixtures in the roster. Speaking of one of the main fixtures, or someone who spends time on the bench, San Francisco got to select their opponent for this match, as everybody in that top 4 has been able to do. Let's hear a little bit from him about why the Fuel, why choose Dallas?
Which team is going to be?
We are going to play the Dallas Fuel. That's our choice.
Ooh. You're not scared of the K at all?
Dallas, I think, was probably the most competitive match of the day, even taking into account Boston, because I thought Houston kind of threw some of their maps today, and they had a lot of chances to win. And I think if it weren't for some of Decay's heroics, I think Dallas could have been in some trouble. So that's why we decided as a team that we're going to pick Dallas.
Well, there you have it, Matt. Super banking on the fact that Lightning won't strike twice. The Shock do have 2 wins against the Fuel on the books already this season. So do you feel that this is reasonable from him?
Yeah, you beat them twice. You watched their game yesterday, and Decay needed like a all-time Widow performance to be able to beat the Houston Outlaws. It's the same type of logic you will use, you know, in any type of like pick-up sports game, where it's like somebody makes a few shots that you don't think's any good, you still let them shoot it because the percentages are in your favor. Decay, though, if he plays like he did yesterday on the Widow, the Shock could definitely be in trouble.
Now, if you missed that match, go back and watch it. We have highlights cut down in cooperation with Action Esports, where you do get to see a lot of what Decay does later in the series. You know, he's playing a lot of Ashe early on, but when he switched to the Widowmaker, he really popped off. And what's incredible about this, what makes it such a big deal, is that he's doing it sometimes into double shield compositions. He's having to play around 2 barriers at times to find some of these picks. It was absolutely absurd. He's definitely going to be called upon today to try and replicate that performance, or somebody else somewhere on this roster has to lift. Here are your Dallas Fuel starters.
And nothing surprising in terms of the starters. This has been pretty consistent from the Dallas Fuel from a while now. Comes to a note in terms of the tanks, Doe and Decay in terms of the DPS, and then Crimzone closer as the support line. But I agree, you're going to need somebody else to step up today for Dallas. You cannot expect Decay to do that again.
Yeah, I can't really rely on him. Doha definitely, when I covered the Lone Star Challenge, which was another Dallas Fuel versus Houston Outlaws matchup, it was actually Doha that fell behind a lot on Echo against Dante. Yesterday, his Echo looked quite good. It's actually prevented Decay from deadlifting his team on multiple occasions. But let's have a look at the San Francisco Shock lineup. They start with an answer potentially to Decay straight out of the gates. Ansan will be there with Rascal on DPS. And Matt Super comes in here to join Shohyobin in the tank line.
Yeah, so it's Super in. It probably tells you they want to play more Reinhardt-based compositions. You don't really see him play a lot when they do like the Winston, the Ball, or the Orisa. It's really like Reinhardt-based things. So maybe some Reinhardt Sigma, maybe some Orisa even here to kick things off. And also for the Shock, we don't see him in the starting lineup, but they do have Twilight on the roster now, right? It's so unfortunate that the Shock, you know, they have this great bench where they have Striker and Twilight, 2 potential MVP candidates from years past.
No doubt about it. Let's have a look at our map pool, Matthew, which is deep. It's deeper than if Edgar Allan Poe could give TED Talks in this day and age. There are a lot of selections, and why that's important is that the team that loses a map will be able to pick the next one. So there are a lot of maps in this pool. In fairness, they have been this has been the map pool for a couple of weeks, but it is now cracked wide open. The teams don't have a ton of notice going in, and with this map pool only having been in effect for about 2 weeks, there's still a lot of bases to cover. Here's your map set today, and as you'll see, only 1 map is already locked in. That will be our starting map, Matthew.
Yeah, that'll be Nepal to kick things off today. So that'll be our control map, and then like Mitch mentioned, the team that loses Nepal will get to pick map 2 out of the hybrid map pool. So the order is obviously control, hybrid, assault, escort, control. Yet again, if we do need map 6 or even a map 7, we would go there.
Yeah, and of course, this is a best of 5. The winning team moving on to the semi-finals that will be played tomorrow. Again, remember, there are match wins on the line and also a cool little bonus of 40 thou card hold Benjamins for the winning team. So plenty to play for here in this May Melee tournament, Matthew, and it all kicks off here as we head into Nepal in just a moment to start our quarters. Yeah,
and I would say in this matchup, the Shock are the heavy favorites. I do think the Dallas Fuel, like, you have to play around Decay, but I think the meta could end up working out for them in a way because they do play much better with slower types of compositions, which at least here in NA, that seems to be what we're trending towards.
All right, well, especially on Nepal, we saw it yesterday. Dallas did play this map. Gamsu looked very good on the Orisa, but it was a close one. Very close, and they had to deal with the May pick from Dante. We'll see now if they have to deal with anything similar from the Shock, who you know they'll play pretty much anything, and they can. But the Outlaws did the same to Dallas yesterday. Played about 23 different heroes, I think, after the first few maps. So you have to be prepared for anything, and Dallas have had a good little bit of a warm-up for that kind of style of play. See what they come out of the gates with here, Matthew. Right now, it could be anything from the Shock here. I mean, Torbjorn and Bastion would be a ridiculous combination. Doha may not stay on the Symmetra.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it's just for the TP because you don't have the Lucio in. So it'll be Ants going on Soldier, and then it'll be Doha picking up the Echo. So interesting from the Shock. They opt for Torb with the 76. This is a really slow composition. Torb 76, Orisa Sigma, obviously no Lucio, and with a Zen Baptiste, this is just a long-range kind of poking and pushing you down type of comp.
Dallas play a composition that's about as close to standard as we get right now, with hero pool restrictions being lifted. And from Answer's perspective, he hasn't really found a good way to get in quite yet. Every time he tries to pressure Note down, there's a barrier out there. There'll be kinetic grasp if the Sigma needs it, so tough for Soldier to make a big entry there. And a war of attrition kicks us off. Rascal hoping for sort of some value over time with this Torb pick.
Yeah, but look how fast they can break down Gamsu's shield, right? He can get to the point, but he's not going to live long at all as Rascal will take him out on the Torb. And then the Torb turret can also kind of watch the cross, help protect some of these supports.
Yeah, but Violet got caught out there. We saw the Dynamite come through, and Crimson was able to find Trujobin. The Shock extended pretty heavily into that map. After getting the pick on Gamsu, they sent Rascal in with an immortality field.
So I like the Torb pick. I think the Torb pick can be quite good, especially if like Doha plays a little bit aggressive and you're able to, you know, protect your supports with it. What I don't understand really is 76. 76, who does he combo with? Like, does it work? Yeah, it's kind of odd. I mean, you could use it with the Amp Matrix Discord as well, like just consistent damage. But there's so many great combos with Ashe, right? Ashe is you know, she can get away with the Coach Gun. Bob can contest points and objectives, I think would be useful than Tac Visor. And then also you see right there, that's the main reason. You can combo her shots with Halt plus Dynamite so effectively.
And she's going to build Bob very quickly. As a result, already Decay has that available now as Dallas crossed the 30% threshold. Doha not too far from a duplicate as well as looking to try to assassinate Ants. He actually gets away. The Bobby's down. Note's been removed by Mothno, and Doha's going to drop in now on that Orisa, using that health pool, but rather frivolously at that. Is he very quickly is knocked out of Duplicator. Now the Tactical Visor is active for Ants. Gamsu pulled into the line of fire, but doesn't take much damage. He's able to back up, but the Shock have taken the point amidst all the fighting, and Gamsu has to be careful.
And this is where the Shock's composition could really start to gain some steam with control of the point, because now you can have the Torb turret kind of crossfire one way, 76 can do the other, and you can just damage the Dallas Fuel enough to when they get to the point, you just kind of push on in and clean up the rest of their health pools.
No, trying to flank here. Gravitic Flux. Good connection. Very good connection. Yeah. An Immortality Field is thrown down, and the Shock are able to heal that one up. Now Note has to be careful. Throws a very battered shield in the way and is at least able to get to safety. Bear in mind, San Francisco still control the point. Kane wants to try and wrap around and get into position here, but gives the capture attempt now. That Gravitic Flux didn't look nearly as effective as Gamsu shrugged it off with Fortify and Decay pole position. Literally finds himself 3 kills, 2 of them being headshots, and San Francisco laid waste as Dallas now can set up around this Orisa.
Yeah, the Shock end up using their Supercharger, their Molten Core, and their Gravitic Flux in that fight. They're not even able to take the point. I believe it was Note kicking it off with the Gravitic Flux for the Dallas Fuel, then Guangzhou using his Supercharger late, but actually quite a good fight for the Dallas Fuel. They'll have their Ant Matrix here, so for both teams, they'll have it. You'll be able to just kind of wait that out. That'll buy Dallas Fuel some time. And at that moment, they're going to be close to a Bob and a Transcendence to put this point away.
Arnt's trying to push parts, no barrier here. Gets a good amount of damage on the Sigma, and the Shock want to follow it up. But Trick Open is hitting the Discord Orb, and Violet is already gone down. Arnt still has to push forward, but he can't get any purchase. And now it's Super v Doha in the Orisa matchup. Super's forced away, and, well, Rascal just ran straight into Guangzhou there. A lot of Orisa action going down, and Doha's already been able to build up a Supercharger. And there it is, the Fuel. Keep the Shock away from the point and end the round.
Would you say that, because I'm starting to think about the 76 pick. Would 76 be the least, I don't want to say viable, but it would probably be like the last hit scan choice I would have went to. Outside of like when you include like Widow, McCree, Ash, 76, like I think the 76 probably would have been the last thing I would have tried there.
Well, honestly, I feel like the Shock put a lot on Rascal, expecting him to do tons, get a lot of kills in that round, but I got bad news for you. Arns gets nothing with Soldier 76. No final blows. Good damage, but that's kind of the problem with Soldier because it's more incremental damage that he deals. Rascal only has 1 final blow. So that's 1 kill between both DPS players on the Shock. It's not enough. Whereas, you see Decay just gets 6 kills, 3 of those happening very close together in a big fight win.
Decay comes out on Symmetra. It's so important for the Dallas Fuel to get control of this point first, and they do. He can get all these turrets set up, and that's really the only way that Sim can be effective on this point.
Doha briefly given the hot foot now, but there's so many ways to keep Decay safe and allow him to charge up that beam. Maywall gets thrown in here by the Shock. Both teams are going to try for this kind of play, but here it is, Decay. He's starting to beam them down. And yeah, Super has to back right on up on top of an Immortality Field to keep him alive, but the fight's already done. Trick Open got wrecked. He's moving to the Orisa here, and San Francisco look a little unsettled. Maywall will keep get the Shock at least onto the point here, but Dallas just break back through and reclaim.
Yeah, they were almost able to take it. It was a nice Maywall from Rascal. Everybody was on the opposite side of the point, and then the final seconds closer is able to get on and get a touch to not let the point flip. So Dallas, they win the first fight. They'll gain control. They'll build up to about 40% probably off of this, because these fights take so long when the other team's running that May and when they were running the Sim, because you can just stall the point for so long, whether it be Lucio, the 2 BP tanks both with shields. There's a lot you can do to stall the point. Let's see now if Dallas can combine these halts with some of the things that Ash does.
Interesting Maywall there from Doha. Does block a little bit of damage, but gives the Fuel some time to wrap back to the point. Hastily, barriers being deployed now as Guangzhou trying to keep his team protected, but the shatter comes in from Super. It connected with Doha and Guangzhou, but not before the Blizzard came out. Decay's trying to work in for the high ground. He already found Arns, and Doha's wrapping around the side. The Shock are dealing with threats from every single direction, and they don't have the individuals to cope. They'll be run down again, and the Dallas maintain control now, pushing past 65%.
But this is why we've talked in the past about the Dallas Fuel being such a scary team day to day, because when you have Doha and Decay, you have a chance in really any matchup, because these guys are just sick in terms of the damage dealers. Where if everybody else just kind of plays their battles even, you have a fantastic shot to win some of these games.
Trick Open tries a Supercharger here and a B, but oh my! Guangzhou lays the shatter down as he retreats, still doesn't prevent the Blizzard. And so Guangzhou is still caught eventually by that whole Fire Strike combo. No trying to get away on that. Orisa also can't escape. Shock spent a fair bit to get this fight, Matt, in their favor now. Super sets up on the point. Good little bit of stall here from Dallas. It'll get them to 99.
Yeah, the 99 get here is huge for the Fuel. They'll come back. They'll have Blizzard and Bob. The Shock need to run it all the way back to win this map, as Dallas could come in as our lowest seed left, and that is a huge pick off, as Dallas now has a chance to win this.
Dallas gets, I guess Dallas gets to wrap their way through now via Decay, who has a bomb! That's filthy! Headshot from Decay, and no, only needed a little bit of extra damage. Quick to the shock, turn around. They use the Lucio to close the gap and get on Decay, but they're lacking players now. No Rascal, answers a long way away. Here's the fight, though. Coalescence, the first half of it doesn't get a lot of value because Violet was walled off from the rest of the Fuel, and now it'll be frozen solid. Dallas Fuel get the hot foot early from Ants, but now they put him on ice. And the Fuel looking very pretty here with a first map win convincingly on Nepal.
And that first pick by Decay is so big, and the reason is because of what we exactly see happen at the end. Is they're able to use a Mei while they're a player up, take the point, and then at that point, you don't have to use your Blizzard to engage to get that first pick off. When the Shock have to come to the point and get on the point and contest, you can just drop the Blizzard right on it, and there's nothing that the Shock can do. They have to run into that to try and contest to send it into OT, and Dallas able to win map 1, and they made it look quite convincing, so I would be worried if I was a Shock fan.
Dallas looked comfortable playing that Reinhardt and Orisa, but I'll make it very simple for you, everybody at home. Decay had as many teams as the entirety of the San Francisco Shock. When final blows were needed from Ansan and Rascal, they just weren't happening. Brutal stuff here to start for the San Francisco Shock, and Dallas want to chalk up their first win against that franchise at a crucial moment. Let's see if they can keep those maps coming now. Map number 2 is just around the corner.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor. And by Zip Chair Gaming, the official chair supplier of the Overwatch League. Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Well, how about that, ladies and gentlemen? The Dallas Fuel start very strong. Not just strong, they look extremely good early. And it's not on the back of this crazy Widowmaker play from Decay, which was apparently all Super was scared about, Matt.
Yeah, it was really a whole team effort from the Dallas Fuel that was able to get this done in map number 1. Decay played great on Ashe. That's a great sign for the Dallas Fuel. And like I mentioned during that first map, that when you have both of these damage dealers online with Doha and Decay, you're in contention to win any series. And I don't think if you don't see Rascal and Ants come alive, I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas goes up 2-0.
Yeah, I'm not looking for Mei players to get tons of final blows, Matt. I'm looking for usually the hit scan that's paired with it to really start dishing damage. That is what the Fuel were able to provide, especially in that second round where they had Decay firing on the Ashe. But for Ansan, it was quiet. It was not what they were looking for. Maybe this doesn't play to the Shock's strengths. It feels like, without hero pools, in the mix that a lot of these teams prefer to play slower compositions now as Kings Row comes up.
Yes, and I think they go to the slower compositions because it's a lot of the same thing that teams kind of defaulted after GOATS, was build a composition that's safe, sustainable, that we can kind of play around, where that's kind of what you see. Double Shield is pretty safe. Baptiste provides a lot of healing, he provides immortality, then you have the extra damage of like the Zen with a hit scan. You're able to recreate some of that magic, where now the Shock, they do make a sub, so it'll be Smurf who comes in for Super here for Kings Row. This tells you they want to stick with like Orisa Sigma based compositions now, like or they want to play Dive, which I would be shocked at the Dive.
Yeah,
to be quite
absolutely.
clear.
We talk about teams wanting to play safer comps. I feel like pro players in Overwatch are kind of like investment bankers, where they're all obsessed with minimizing risk in their team comps, except for the fact that expensive clothes and shoes are terrible investments in the long term, actually awful. But when it comes to how they put their comps together, if they have the option to play something a little bit slower, better healing, a little bit safer, and try and hedge on their, their big DPS players, finding picks when they otherwise shouldn't, that's where they want to go. Kings Row, Matthew, comes up here, and yeah, you said you'd be surprised to see Dive. I don't blame you for saying that.
Yeah, I think the Dive would be a bit of a shock. I think that's why you bring in Smurf to play the Orisa here, so that this what the Shock look like they're going to do on offense. Could very well be it. Probably you switch out Ants for one of the hit scan heroes. And then Dallas, look, if they can't beat you on Nepal like this, you run it out there again. I don't know how much of an impact the Echo made, but I think Echo is so powerful as a hero at time to time. You kind of have to stay with it. Like, you could just have ridiculous moments with the Echo.
And that obviously is a portrait of Mondata, who, as far as the lore is concerned, was
he stole ZP's gold. That's the lore.
That's right, Mondata's gold, yes. So that is a vigil to him, but also a warning to Zenyatta players right now, because when those ashes are hunting, you best keep your head down. Rascal, cheeky,
okay,
takes a volley straight out the gates. Now he knows that the fuel mean business. Ants now to the Widowmaker. What can he provide? Albeit if only shortly here before he switches.
Well, you don't know if he's going to switch. I mean, you can force positioning here on Kings Row that they can make the Widow pretty effective.
Well, he wants to move out. This is kind of an indicator to us. If the Widow actually steps out of Sport onto this platform, it means that they actually want to try and snipe this round. So the Shock get a lot of space, maybe because it was just Ants, keeping watch from Spawn, but it allows San Francisco to get into what I consider to be a pretty strong position. They get high ground almost by default to Doha. Sneaky beaky like. What's he looking for on this flank?
He's going to try and pressure out Ants, as Ants gets to about half HP. He's a little scared to pressure him down, as you probably thought Doha could have went a little bit more aggressive, but still, they pick up the kill. Smurf getting very low. You don't need to chase that because Smurf's going to make it to the Mega, so now you can turn your attention to the point.
Gamsu is down though. Doha couldn't get inside the immortality field. Oh, he was just out of it. The cool breezes, the halcyon emotions, he couldn't make it there, so he doesn't get to Sanctuary, and the rest of the Dallas Fuel just get kicked off of point A. Again, I mean, it starts with Gamsu being that first main kill. The Shock was short-handed in that fight map, but still triumphed without the enemy Orisa in play.
And it's still so dangerous when you play against the San Francisco Shock, because things look like it was going good for the Dallas Fuel. And then all it takes is just one thing to turn the Shock's favor, one mistake from your team, and they're able to flip that fight around their way. And, the Widowmaker didn't get a lot of kills in the kill feed, but just forcing the positioning and holding the angles forced the Dallas Fuel to drop from that high ground pretty much.
I mean, the Shock are daring the Fuel to try and challenge this, but Widow doesn't have a ton of great defensive setups now after point A's been lost, so Dallas Fuel keep the sensible hat on, as Troy Hoban now just tries to take chunks out of Gamsu's shield. Here's a halt, a Creation combo. Gamsu was fortified though and isn't knocked back.
But look at this space. They're going to use the Amp Matrix. If you're the Shock, you can just back up here. Ants is a good idea of where these players are at. Choi can call that Echo out to him as well, so he may be able to get a shot on him.
Yeah, at least Ants has some warning. Note trying the off-angle Sigma there. Notice he's playing on a different side of the choke than the rest of his team. This is really common. Oh, wow. Ants finds him. Yeah, Doha, if he lingers in midair for too long, especially at half health, that doesn't take much to finish him off. Doha wants to try and push forward here. Nice grab there with the Gravitic Flux, but it's going to be an Immortality Field drop down, and now a Flux coming from the Shock. Decay's able to coach gun backwards away from it, and this will force a Transcendence from the Fuel. Supercharger now down for the Shock, and Rascal's going to copy a Batiste. Of course he does. He now wants to push forward. Amplification Matrix gets thrown down. Supercharger has been removed here for Smurf, but Gamsu falls. Not a great start. The anchor's down for Dallas, but Note's able to find a kill in that off angle. Unfortunately, that leaves him stranded out at sea and eventually removed.
Yeah, you just end up losing too many players for the Dallas Fuel, specifically the front line, but just talk about how devastating a Batiste copy is. Potential for double amp matrix, which I believe they got there. Another immortality field, and the self-heal with the AoE heal to everybody. Like, just the basic kit of Batiste is just so impactful to be able to copy and use double of. I would not be surprised if we start to see that more often with Echo in play with Batiste as well.
Especially the individual's aptitude on that hero does make a difference, and we know what Rascal does. We know what he be doing. We know what he done, gone, and done did before in the past of Batiste. And the Shock is still pushing his cart, Matt. Still slowly, almost inexorably towards the end of the map. Gamsu's shield's a little bit low, so now he'll have to break line of sight and give some extra cart progress. Eventually, though, he will have to take front and center and act as a pivot here for the Fuel to play around. Gonna be Amplification Matrix coming out from closer. Crimso's close to the Transcendence, but they've already lost Doha. Not the ideal start to the fight here for the Fuel. And as an Amplification Matrix thrown down by Violet, has to go for the Immortality Field as the accretion whirs past him.
But look at this, Onsa's fantastic position up on the high ground. 2 headshots, kills Note during his Gravitic Flux. Smurf gets rid of Gamsu's Supercharger as everything's falling apart for the Fuel.
Smurf is discorded, but it's only Harmony right now for the Shock. They are working in concert. What is that melody you say? It's the San Francisco Shock theme song as they finish the map with 3 minutes and 27 seconds on the clock. Tidy little finish. Ansan coming out with 4 final blows on that Widow as the map winds up. Everybody across the Shock, though, getting their hands dirty.
It's like the first map from the Dallas Fuel, a win for them was like a little jab, and then the Shock just come out with a haymaker here to start King's Row.
It's like all those gifs. It's all those gifs with like the little cat, you know, it's like just batting at the big one and then
yeah, and then it just gets nuked as I mean, all 3 points, completing the map. 3 minutes 27 in the time bank. That is a pretty impressive time for the Shock. As I think we learn a lot about the Dallas Fuel in this series. Like, I think even if the Shock were to lose and it's close, like, okay, they've had a rough series, and you can kind of like chalk it up. Like, we've seen them in big moments before succeed, so you don't really worry about them long term. I think this tells us a lot about the Dallas Fuel, though, for the remainder of their season. Like, if they can put up a close game against the Shock, even after having some moments where the Shock looked really good and dominate, like, do you think that this is a team that's kind of gotten over the hump in some of the I don't want to say like the mental aspects, but some of the times where in big moments they don't come up clutch to Dallas Fuel in the past? Do you think this is one where they can kind of prove to themselves that they can get it done?
There are multiple games today, actually, that could signal new eras for many of our teams. I consider one of those to be the Florida Mayhem later on. Yeah, I mean, this is where the Fuel properly earn their stripes with a roster that is giving people confidence, but not really producing the consistency.
After season 1 and 2 for the Mayhem, those fans deserve a new era.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get there, bro.
Yeah.
Much to talk about later on, but for now, the Fuel want to push on in. Closer on the Batiste, obviously, with hero pools open, he'll be playing that a bit more, but not a usual pick for him. Ansan goes down early, though. Crimzo, you see he takes an aggressive pick and necessitates an Immortality Field deployment from Closer, but hey, they'll take the kill. But are they capitalizing? The Shock just back right on up here. They give a fair bit of space, get some good damage on Note on the high ground, though.
They don't give up the high ground, though. That's the key. Dallas gave up the high ground on their defense. The Shock's still holding on to it. They may end up losing it in the end, but this could allow them to make a play for the point late.
Crimzo gets another. That's huge. Note does go down, so it's a 5v4 now. Reinforcements are here. As you'll see the Rascal and Answer back in force. Nice accretion combo. Again, forcing an Immortality Field where Dallas are kind of in a position where they could have gone forward. Now they'd have to wait, and Doha gets caught out in the open with the rest of his team on the back foot. Ansan finds him, and yeah, Gamsu has to turn tail.
Controlling this high ground, though, has been so crucial, though, for the Shock. Like this, Gamsu comes out, gets drilled with a headshot. They have the Amp Matrix to save him. All you have to do is just juggle the tanks on the point to be able to contest.
Ansan doing well, considering double shields are in play right now. Decay sends a warning dynamite to the high ground, and Ansan is in trouble. Yep, those sticky bombs are going to clean him up pretty comfortably. And Doha now can wait for reinforcements. He's probably aware that Moth is below him in a choke somewhere. Would like to shut the Zen down when given the opportunity. Yep, there it is. Moth removed by Doha, and Gamsu sat up on the point, just taking a step back, letting them come. And the Fuel get a hard-fought W on point A.
Yeah, it's not a bad defense, like all in all from the Shock. Like you end up giving it up, but they did a nice job just drawing it out, holding on to that high ground, because with the way Dallas started that with an early pickoff from Crimzo, you thought that Dallas could have taken that almost even faster, and now the Fuel, they push up, they're trying to take some space here, prevent the Shock from getting a second good clean fight before that cart comes around this corner behind them.
Pushing like this also makes it harder to set up that Sigma in the annoying potential flank position, especially if the Shock are looking to try and shut down Decay, especially.
Ooh, what is this?
Well, Doha, he's waiting for the 1140 train to Rexville. He'll have a duplicate available. See what he decides to go with here. Gravitic Flux, that's a good start for him. Okay, tries to throw the sticky bombs in. It was a clever deployment of that Immortality field once more. He actually gets nothing from the flank now, wraps around to the front side, and he is Sigma. Again, 3 shields in play now. Yeah, no worries. The Fuel definitely can weather this storm for now.
It's going to be 3 shields for both teams, as Rascal also was a Sigma.
my.
Doesn't matter for Doha, though. He gets 1 with the Gravitic Flux, 1 on the way down. Decay just shooting them out of the sky, as Dallas will keep the cart rolling. So in an offense where the Shock come through and they take all 3 points with 3:27, Dallas's answer is to just blow through the second point of the map, and they'll be able to take this with a tremendous amount of time left.
Yeah, in fairness, they even have an ultimate to bring into the next fight. The Shock have not gotten value for their key abilities so far. And they got crippled by a very quick Gravitic Flux charge time from Doha in the previous fight. Doha again wants to push forward here. Amplification Matrix going to help those sticky bombs find a little bit more damage, but again, it's the Shock that just break line of sight now with that ultimate in play. They do have a Transcendence to work with here.
We almost got the beam off, which Moth's going to get really low. You could almost force out that Transcendence. So I think the Fuel just waiting to try and build up their own Transcendence, maybe even a Gravitic Flux of their own. And ooh, Amp Matrix gets dropped from Violet. Kill on a Decay, so that'll force the Dallas Fuel back.
Okay, they haven't had to use that Transcendence yet, which is pretty good. They'll have a chance in a moment. The Shock, as Crimso's used his.
Why would they use that?
No idea. Maybe the Fuel just buoyed forward with this momentum from the previous fights, but they need to be aware that they aren't that far ahead at all. In fact, they're at risk of falling behind in time now after that interesting commission of the ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, the Transcendence saves Crimzo himself, but they get absolutely 0 value for it as a team, which that's a tough ultimate to just kind of throw out for nothing.
And now the Shock, Matt, they just built 4 ultimates in that fight. They saved the Transcendence, which is probably the most important part here. Jokoven's going to get thrown up now, trying to go for the kinetic grasp while he can, and Bob finds Decay elsewhere. Jokoven wants to push forward, and Note's in trouble! Utz from that left-hand side on the Ash brings down the house. And San Francisco now move ahead in time bank.
Okay, but for Dallas Fuel, they end up getting the Bob, Supercharger, Gravitic Flux, and the Transcendence out of the Shock. So that's a huge exchange of ultimates here. Which now the Dallas Fuel, they come in with their Duplicate, Bob, Supercharger, their Amp Matrix as well. They swung this ult game in their favor, and they have a good chance to push the card over the line with this.
They're looking for big value, and they're likely to have it now that Doha has his Duplicate online once more. His Amplification Matrix, Bob runs straight on through it there. And it's Trichoven to go down first. Doha plays that high ground as a Zenyatta. Maybe the Transcendence to help him through the last fight. He has to build it first, but that doesn't seem to be a problem at all. 2:15 on the clock, and Transcendence is online. Pop it while you can. And there's so much healing, way more than the Fuel really need in this fight now. Doha can sit back, try and work Troikoven down with a focusing beam, and here comes Ansan on the Tracer. Forced to recall early. Smurf drops in here with a pile driver. Immortality field thrown down, but Smurf was out of it and discorded. Ansan gonna fall. Now Moth has to try and step forward. Is it Lucio? He hasn't had much chance to play that so far. And the Fuel finished the round under 2 minutes of time. A good recovery. And you can see just how much of a difference it made with the Fuel forced the Shock to part with those hard-earned ultimates in the prior fight.
Right, you can trade 1 ultimate for 4. You'll take that any day, any team in the league. And especially when you can do it for a point like King's Row last, where you have to go down this narrow chokeway. When you have things like an Amp Matrix, things like a Bob, a Supercharger, it's very difficult to kite those and just get the line of sight and not be in the way, because there's not many places to hide there at the end. And then also the cart's moving closer to the objective, which forces you out to touch it anyway. So that's where you're able to get really big value out of those ults for the Dallas Fuel.
And look at this. If we get Decay for more than just the first few seconds, then it's going to be, oh, like Donkey Kong! Or maybe he just peeks out. Maybe he's just teasing us. Either way.
He may be doing this because Ans, after dying early, came back, switched to the Widowmaker, and played Widowmaker for first point for a little period of time. So he may think they may try and come out with the Widowmaker as well.
It would be a risk, though, for the Shock. I mean, it did work for Ans, though. You know, watching the sort of the Shock play around, working those Orisa shields down, getting big headshots onto Guangzhou, taking down like 10% HP is huge as a momentum stopper for the Fuel, who seem to benefit so much from that. So now we go to extra innings. The Fuel have less time. They'll attack first. They have Decay on the Widow. Give me some of that good, fam.
Yes, he'll be able to try and force those same angles that we saw Ons do earlier. So see if he's able to do it. Dallas moving slowly around the statue as
ponderously.
Yeah, so they can take one of two angles. They can go to the point underneath this high ground and try and force them down and then let Decay get shots in that way, or they can do this route. So this is exactly what the Shock did. The Shock went up the stairs and then they tried to push the Fuel back to this corner and then this window, which gives Decay a really nice sightline.
Ooh, Guangzhou though worked down pretty quickly, and now the Shock just want to get rid of Note. They get a lot of damage on them, but they're at risk of losing Choi Hyobin there. We'll take it easy for a moment. Doha's picked off here. Decay finds 8 kill, but is that enough?
Yeah, the thing is Decay was so focused on getting this kill, like that he didn't end up really trying to help them try and get any type of positioning, where he wasn't really kind of putting in shots of the shield up on the high ground. You lose a lot of that damage, and this is not good. The players for the Fuel, they should have tried to just die a while ago. This was not something that was salvageable.
Ah, man, it was brutal. That first kill, obviously, very important here for the Shock, and look, Fuel did manage to sort of push some of them out into the open, but Decay got a one-way ticket to the quarry. I mean, paleontologists in the future are going to find parts of his brain matter in granite samples after that accretion halt combination, and no one can really stand up to that one adequately. There's 17 seconds left. Decay be looking, he's hunting. Has this Widowmaker pick worked against him? Has this hubris actually gotten the better of the Fuel? 8 seconds left, and Decay still looking for an opportunity, but the Fuel have to help him find it. They need to provide it. Okay, that might be it. Rascals down, the sticky bombs have found him, and Doha plays around the corner. Waits his time. Violet's going to drop down with a window available here, and Choi Hyobin has a lot of extra shield. Bob just burnt on down. Not enough room, I guess, for 13 players right now. And Doha is hunting. He's looking for the Widowmaker. He's found it. Can he find a kill? Sticky bomb connection. They trade out. Arts, of course, on the Ash now. Guangzhou goes down. Arts found 2 kills despite all that scrutiny he was facing, and now Don't pushes forward. No, wants a bit of that gravitic flux action if he can make his way there. He used it earlier on. Crimzo now Transcendence on the point, but Note's a little bit low again. Taken to the quarry. Here's the Transcendence for Moth, and the Shock shoved them off. The Fuel can't get there. Quick cheeky double from Ansan, Matt. What a difference maker.
Yeah, as Doha goes high above the window and tries to just jump down and get inside of it, he's able to pick up Ans, but Ans gets 2 right before he's taken out. So it's a big hold there from the San Francisco Shock. It's still the Dallas Fuel earning 77%. So Dallas does still give themselves a fighting chance, but 3 minutes 27 is a lot on the clock.
I mean, yeah, they got more than a tick. So credit to the Dallas Fuel there. And maybe the Shock did the same thing. You know, we see a similar strategy employed, even though it's a different map, on the Temple of Anubis, right? If you want to set up with a Widowmaker play, then you get your team to force the enemy out into the open, or force them into a really terrible position for contesting the point by taking cover. Now, on Anubis, it's maybe easier to access that Widow. Here on King's Row, it can be very, very difficult to sneak your Echo forward to catch that Widow out.
And I think more importantly, when if the Widow comes from the Shock, is how Dallas plays it this time. Like, I don't think you can give up high ground straight away.
Doha has to be more aggressive?
I think it's a combination of D.Va needs to be more aggressive, or you need to put the focus on getting rid of these tanks from the high ground and forcing them down. Because I don't think you can allow the Shock to just walk up into the high ground, take it with the Widowmaker in play.
All right. Rascal just gets a bit of early poke damage down. Arnsun will be playing the Widow early. And the Shock, again, take this more roundabout approach. Again, it's the same as going to the left-hand side on point A for Temple of Anubis. You just take a way that's protected from a lot of this poke damage. The least time you spend in line of sight of the enemy team, the better. Really simple stuff. Trick open, very nice little kinetic grasp. The Rascal is very far forward here. Nothing for Arnsun yet.
Nope, so they're just trying to see what Dallas does when they show this movement up to the high ground. As Decay playing in the back, he'll take out Rascal with a nice headshot.
Yeah, Decay now is able to be safe. Now with no one really to contest him except for maybe Arnsun, that will require Decay to position badly. So Arnsun's down, Doha really relieves the pressure, not only on Decay but the rest of the fuel, by getting those couple of kills and by playing a bit more aggressive, a bit more proactive. Now the Shock are kind of stuck here.
Yeah, and they can hold him here for a bit. Oh, and they walk right into it. It's an ant matrix inside, and the Shock just wipe the floor with Dallas. They pick up 5, and that should be the point.
No way!
Oh.
The fuel were looking so good. Face first. San Francisco just took him to the school of rock, baby. Straight into an accretion that's charged, of course. Ant matrix is there. Absolutely flattened.
Crimso in the chat just goes, uh-oh, yeah, no, that is an uh-oh, as they walked right into that. But that's almost like they weren't aggressive enough. They just let them, like, linger in there. They didn't, like, go in and just try and, like, barrel them down.
3 players,
and then as soon as they did, they all came from different angles and just gotten blown up by the Ant Matrix.
How do you feel as Doha, by the way? You've just worked down half of that team. There's only 3 Shock players left, but again, their aggression on trying to push into the rest of the Shock left their backs exposed to Ants who just respawned. It's almost like the merry-go-round play from Surefire again. Oh, what a debate. Ah, man. You be kicking yourself. I can't believe that.
Dallas probably angry. They gave... I mean, look, the percentages is that the Shock wins the map, but you're kind of tilted if you're Dallas.
That is absolutely feculent. I can't believe it. All right, we're going to be back with... map number 3 after this break. Collect yourselves, take a deep breath, fuel fans, don't maul too hard. We'll see you, of course, after the break.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Rank up with America's largest 5G network. Switch to T-Mobile today. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Welcome to our first game break of the day, presented by Cheese Grooves. Zoe here, joined by Costa and Reinforce, and it is 1 apiece between the Dallas Fuel and the San Francisco Shock. And quite frankly, didn't even think Dallas is going to get a map, not that convincingly anyway, and they did make it look fairly convincing in that very first round. So let's dissect it. Let's talk about what we saw. Nori coming to join the conversation. Oh my god.
Welcome, Nori.
So
Hey,
much
Nori.
for-
Hey, Nori.
Hey Nori, welcome. He will dissect the match as well. I'm just trying to make sure.
Okay,
he's
cool.
Trying
Then
to
I'm done.
turn off
Bye.
my stream. But Costa, what stood out to you in that very first round?
I think
Donita.
it has to be, when you go into the first round of the first map, it has to be the Soldier. It was a very weird pick, as Mr. X said. I think Soldier would probably be the last pick that I would want. We have the Soldier has good value in terms of flanking and moving around the map on Sanctum, but the issue that they had is Dallas adjusted incredibly well by playing their Zen and their Sigma on that flank, so that the Soldier couldn't get anything done. So I'm very surprised that Ansan didn't switch as the map went on, but you just saw they lacked damage, and they lacked the ability to sort of control the space that, and Dallas did a very good job. Go to the second round, and I think Dallas just executed very well, and it was a bit of the decay show on the Ashe as well. So big props to Dallas for that first map, because that was incredibly convincing, as you said.
Yeah, I feel like Shock just weren't playing up to par on Nepal. Like, I think there are some Fusion fans out there who will be like, oh, this proves the Shock, they aren't that great. But I honestly think that was just an off map. Like, it didn't look like the normal selves, like they had an inferior strategy. But then when it came to King's Row, I mean, Ansan started popping off on the Widowmaker. We're really starting to see some of these duels come out between Decay. This is what we've been waiting for. This is where the series really come alive, in my opinion. So, in many ways, Dallas Fuel, they just started off the series with a 1 advantage, and now we're finally getting the full brunt of it. So, I'm really enjoying this match so far. I think we're seeing spectacular play from both teams. Like, Dallas Fuel is playing up to the San Francisco Shock in my mind. So this is very, very interesting. But then that final fight, of course, I think the way Mitch described it was friculent. I mean, I don't have his way of words,
I've
but
never heard that word. So
yeah, I mean, my version is friculent. I'm gonna stick with that. So,
Sure,
but yeah, Decay and Ansan is really the story of this matchup, in my opinion. And these are the two players you should look out for in the game. They could have the true deciding moments of the fights, etc. So, very interesting match so far.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. You see Decay has much better stats, but I would say the impact of the kills that Ansan got on King's Row were incredibly high. You saw him, get some really big picks on the first point and on the third point to really push Shock through it. So Decay's definitely, putting in the work, but Ansan's no slouch right now, even though his stats are worse than Decay.
Right, well, there's still a lot to come since we do have a second half. But for now, let's take a look at what phenomenal play made it into our crunch time, because there were a lot of Sigmas in that one. 4, in fact. 4 Sigmals. So it's a lot of Sigmals.
That's a lot.
Some would say too many. Yeah, we're going to go to this fight. It's hard to dissect because there's so many ults going off and so many things happening. But it's interesting because both teams engaged the fight with Sigma ults. So we have Mirror Sigma ults, so it kind of nullifies both of theirs. But then we have the interesting thing that Echo adds to the game, where we have both Echoes then take the Sigma and then get their Sigma ults as well. But Dallas gets the better of it. They get a higher value Sigma ult by Doha on this one. And it's just interesting, great play, because this is sort of how the ult usage should be used. We see Decay taking the off angle, throwing the bob behind them, and this sort of really helps the Dallas Fuel get the advantage on this. Playing very linearly on King's Row will generally lose you the fight. You want to be taking as many off angles as you can. So just a really interesting fight in my opinion, and a lot of toes.
Very unique. I think that's the first time we've seen so many Sigmals together.
Yeah.
I mean, spectacular. Love to see it.
Spectacular, indeed.
I'm trying to get there in my way with words, but I can't live up to Mitch. So I'm starting out with like
to
brilliant,
be fair, I think 50%
spectacular.
of them are actually made up.
True.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
I
he's
don't
gonna be
know.
so upset now when we go back to him. But
I needed
okay.
like a Mitch dictionary. So when he says a word, I'm like, okay, well, what is that?
that would actually sell well.
Yeah.
Sure. I'd buy a version just to see how well that goes down. I'm super excited for the second half of that game. It's great to see that Dallas are actually going toe-to-toe against the Shock there.
Toe-to-toe? Really, Zoe?
Well, I just
Really?
watched 4 Sigmas, okay? It's not
Really?
my fault.
She's got toes on her mind.
Exactly. That's all what's in my head right now. So let's just head into the second half. Hanamura is coming up next. And let's hope this is going to be a close one until the very end.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Groups. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. After some of the most heinous scenes I have seen in Overwatch at this level in quite some time, Kings Row went the way to San Francisco Shock to even up the series.
I like how the halftime was basically just reinforcing what I've been saying for years, is that nobody understands half of the words you say, and we think you're all just making it up.
Oh, they tried to figure it out. Well,
yeah, and they couldn't. They couldn't. And they're really smart people. Well,
you know, that's up to interpretation. I mean, not my problem if they haven't read a dictionary in a while. That's okay. You know, I just have a good memory for that stuff. But more importantly, let's talk about something that's not me, because I don't care about that. Matt, do this shot. Okay, so do you consider that map one to be a fluke and just like bad compositions then? Because like I don't know what the Soldier 76 kit was supposed to be.
I'm still shocked about Soldier 76. Like I still don't really, especially because you default to playing Ashe or Widowmaker the rest of the way, where you easily could have played the. You could have played Torb Ashe, and that would have been fine. I just think the 76 was just an odd pick there in map number 1. It is still close though in map number 2. I don't think like you can kind of give all of that credit away from Dallas.
Yeah, I just think things went a little bit wrong for Dallas. The first point defense from San Francisco though, looked to be a big difference maker when we went to extra innings. Hanamura is going to be our next map in this series though. Another interesting one, especially when we consider the use of Widowmaker. This has been the site of many big Widowmaker moments in the past. Think Flower, think Decay yesterday. I mean, we might keep seeing more of that. Is that what's most important to you though, Matt?
You could see it. No, I think what's most important to me is like how they're comboing with the halts, especially on a map like this. Like trying to manufacture pickoffs. I think it's way more likely, and I think it's a little bit safer to use the halt with like dynamite, accretion, and just kind of blow people up. That's really what you're kind of seeing teams do now.
We'll see if that is how punishing that can be, of course. Dynamite, I mean, in and of itself is not really supposed to just like destroy people. It is a short cooldown. What it does two things. A, it gives you Bob quick, right? You hit 6 people with that, you'll be showing Bob in no time.
Yeah.
B, also, it just taxes the healing resources of a team. Like, especially if they don't have like a ton of burst healing, or a good example is like Ana hates getting hit with dynamite personally because she doesn't want to have to use a Biotic orb to heal herself, and Zen can't heal everybody at once with the Harmony orb, right? So it can be quite annoying in cases like that. It just puts pressure on your healing resources and forces mistakes.
Yeah, the dynamite you can just get so much value from, and it started off like, oh, this is nice, but now comboed with halt, it's devastating. Dallas gonna go for a cheeky strategy here, try and get a teleport to the point. You can Maywall behind it, get the turret set up, or they Maywall in front and they go up to the side. That's an interesting look.
Well, make sure the TP doesn't get destroyed and no one takes too much damage as they push towards the point, and they're in. But Answer's found Crimso. Huge amount of the healing now unavailable for the Dallas skills. So what do they do about this threat in the backline? Ants misses a couple crucial shots, but Violet does not. Decay is down, and there is the pick on closer. The Fuel have run out of players, and that would have been fine if it wasn't for that pesky Widow. Answer uncontested.
Yeah, now Decay, that Symmetra thing only really works once. Every team we see try more than that, it ends up resulting in a loss. And interesting, so they go Sombra Tracer. Do you switch the tanks and go Winston D.Va here? Because yeah, the Orisa doesn't really make much sense with the dive. So we'll see Dallas Fuel get really aggressive. They want to put pressure onto Moth. They want to put pressure onto Ants.
Decay. We'll be bringing up the rear here. He sneaks in on the right-hand side, but...
Oh, well, that push over.
That's just... Oh, man. Rascal catches closer with a headshot. That's not easy to do, especially against a target like the Lucio. Now what, Dallas? Now you're up the creek without a paddle.
And you're kind of stuck. Like, this closer, is he able to make it back through the choke past this Widow? Like, how do things work now? As Ants takes out as Ants has really turned it up here on Widow.
That is egregious. This is what Ants is known for. It's why they picked the guy up, and, well, he is delivering. Now, you don't take this challenge. No. Oh, okay, well, maybe you do. Decay just got an unwanted lumbar puncture there as he tries to get away from Ants.
If you're shooting this good and he's not going to look at you, of course you start taking the duel. Is Decay trying to get to the Mega Health Pack? Doesn't even get there. This is something we've seen from Dallas like a few times in this series. They're able to get away, but a few times they've had players just linger around for too long, get staggered.
Going the way of the Woolly Mammoth. I say it's too much for him. And now Rascal just gets to work his way around. This now forces Dallas to pretty much group up here in fairly close quarters now, which means that Holt looks more effective. They can play more around that Orisa barrier. Closer, what are you doing, Brave? All you do is chill.
And they can't stay close because did you notice like Smurf throws out a halt and then Rascal just goes for the multi-freeze, just trying to get everybody trapped. As Gamsu comes in on Wrecking Ball, as that is not going to turn out well for him.
Oh, Mr. Gamsu, I don't feel so good. The Wrecking Ball doesn't get much done. He gets halted pretty much immediately here, and Smurf is ready for this kind of shenanigans. Now Decay gets Pulse Bomb. Nice stick, but Immortality Field gets thrown down. Decay still able to finish the kill on Moth. The Pulse Bomb got rid of that Immortality Field in advance.
But like this
now
push just looks ridiculous from Dallas. Like they're just players everywhere. Like not grouping up to get another good attempt at it. It looks like we're just kind of getting in there one-on-one, just trying to maybe get an advantage in terms of spawn.
Oh no, close her down again. And Chokobin's just screaming off Decay every time he tries to wrap around. Unsigned Sniper is his name. And he's good on the Schnipper, no doubt about it. He's almost going to have an Infrasight available now as well, which is going to make life even worse for Dallas, especially if they're trying to get that Sombra in position. Doha won't be able to do it undetected. All right, they see Doha coming. He has the translocator now for the next 10 seconds. His position is visible. And there's not much time left, Matt.
No, I mean, you have 2 players at the choke. You have the 4 players behind. And they have the walls, so they know exactly what's going to come here. Is the Shock are in a great position to get this point A home.
It's time to throw down. Dallas get 3 players with the sound barrier. Doesn't feel great. This better be a big EMP, and it's chunky. Smurf gets blown up immediately by the D.Va bomb. Nice little combo, but Chukobin managed to survive. Moth now comes in with that Transcendence, and the Shock is just waiting on reinforcements, but the Orisa is gonna be slow. Maybe Smurf switches, and he does. The Wrecking Ball will be on the way, but Moth is down as he comes out of Transcendence. Coalescence from Crimzo helps him burn them on down, and the Fuel are going to get across the line map, but they are looking haggard. And Ansan finds another kill on Crimzo. It's just vile. The pure damage output from the Widowmaker cannot be denied. And now it's going to be the 2 Wrecking Balls trying to play Dodgem Cars on the point. The Shock don't really have the place to contest properly now.
No, it does not look like it. Although Moth comes back and they get a boop on the closers. No, they all back out, it looks like here. Oh, wait a second. Smurf wants to come in, get a touch. You still have Moth here. No. Moth's here as well. There's no way they turn this.
No. This is audacious to the nth degree. Decay, okay, he gets away. Point still captured, so now the Shock, unfortunately, have to feed a bit of ult percentage over towards the Fuel. Dallas come up with the goods here. The switch to the Wrecking Ball for Guangzhou eventually yields results. But the EMP taking Chokobin out of the mix, definitely a big change. And now we'll see what San Francisco switch to on defense. Ansan Sombra.
That's an interesting look. You would think
it's only for the Wrecking Ball, surely.
Yeah, that's what you would have thought, right? It's for the Wrecking Ball in case they kind of come in and try and get a push. Now we'll get the Widowmaker matchup we wanted, where Decay will play the Widow and so will Ans.
Decay now. Oh, that is a sight line if I've ever seen one. We saw the cut there. I was waiting for the record scratch. How did I get here moment? But Crimzo was able to get back behind the shield as this closer. There's a blizzard here for Rascal. We would love Dallas all to come up to this 1 point, but Decay is on the hunt now. Again, if the Fuel can keep the Shock busy and give Decay that space, it's going to be all over Red Rover. Here they go to the high ground now, push straight past that initial Sigma barrier. Halt thrown in. EMP. Itchy fingers! 5 players there. Nice catch. Decay's in a great position now to benefit from the lack of shielding available to the Shock, but they don't find any kills. Finally, they get one, but they've lost Crimzo and Guangzhou already, and that one fell flat on its face.
And I think what happens is that the EMP doesn't connect. Well, no, it connects with Violet, but I think they're just too slow to kind of go in and try and get some pickoffs, and then Violet's able to get down an Immortality Field, and then they just blow them up with an Amp Matrix, where that's a pretty tough fight to lose there if you're Dallas. And Doha, he switches off of the Sombra, and he will now play Echo, which has to be to put pressure on Ans.
Oh, get out.
Ooh.
Get out!
Oh, that is nasty stuff.
Just odious delivery from Ans there.
Yes, very odious.
Odious.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely detestable.
As everybody tabs out and tries to figure out how to spell that to get the meaning of it.
Pretty sure if you spell it wrong, you'll still get the meaning. Yeah, we'll go through a couple of those synonyms today. I'll try and think of more. Either way, Decay, I mean, this is the best time to do it, right? We got Widowmaker play. I'm sick of saying filthy 20 times a broadcast. It's getting old for me too, and I imagine it's getting even older for you.
Yeah, but the people like when you go crazy. So you have to give them what they want.
All right, so if that's what they want, Matt, turn your mic off right now, and I'll solo cast badly for a minute, and then I'll get a lot of love on Reddit for it. Okay. What do you reckon?
I got you.
Doha just going to play the off angle here. Sticky bombs. All right, closing it. He's lost his immortality fielder now. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's so brutal. And you knew, Matt, that Crimzo knew that was coming. He already backed away. Closer just wasn't fast enough here. Decay gets violent now. It's Battle of Widowmaker. D.Va trying to come in here. It's going to be a bumpy landing. He finds the kill, but Trihurban's able to follow it up, and the Fuel are no closer to capturing the point now after that trade. They needed more than that from Doha. Nodes surrounded. Comes to a note, back to back now. Immortality field is there for the shock though, so they're basking in the rays of the drone. And there will be no tick on point B, Matt.
They don't get a tick, which that's probably the worst part about it for the Dallas Fuel. Although, and the Decay starts popping off on the Widowmaker, you have a chance to get a point A hold. We saw what Once was doing for the shock. If you're able to do the same thing here for Dallas, right, on defense, if Decay is able to play Widow, if he does decide to go that route, and able to get a few pickoffs, you can easily put together a hold like the Shock had and be in a position to get that point A hold.
Decay made the switch, Matt. 2 Widow for point B, and you can't understand why, right? Theoretically, he'd have plenty of space to work with. The problem is that, well, Ansan doesn't really need to flank or dive Decay to get rid of him. You saw how hard Doha was working to try and remove the Widow, but it's a similar conundrum you face as on King's Row, right? You're defending on King's Row, the enemy has a Widow. Who do you dive that Widow with, and how do you do it safely in such a way that DPS can actually come back and help you with the larger fight? Otherwise, you just create a 5v5.
Yes, and there's a lot of really sick angles you can take on the defense for Widowmaker, right? Like, you can look through the initial choke, like the main one down the middle, and you can even see the staircase for them to go up to the high ground. He's able to get Crimzo with a headshot on one of those. You're able to, rotate towards the right side stairs if you're coming out of the spawn and get angles towards the high ground. You're able to go a little bit further than that and get angles towards the bridge. There's a lot of nice Widowmaker, and I mean, that doesn't even include just playing back by your spawn, right? Just being able to get back into your spawn, constantly get healed up. So a lot of nice angles on that point B defense. Dallas, they will play the Widowmaker here. They will not play like a Mei. They'll play an Echo instead.
All right, so there'll be no wall throw now. There'll be no TP. So we'll see how the Fuel weather this one. I mean, Decay has good sidelines. Ansan's able to create himself a sideline here that actually doesn't make him vulnerable really to Decay at all. He has plenty of warning, a fairly safe spot to peek from, and it denies that left side balcony that Note was just forced off of. Still, Decay does find a pick through, somehow through double shield, which is just mental that this is happening at the moment, but here we are.
Well, the shields go away so fast. Right, you're playing the double shield with the Zen of Batiste. The Echo does a good amount of damage. Like, Dallas will have an advantage in terms of blowing up these shields. It'll just be whether they can survive the EMP storm that eventually comes.
Ansan is pushed up a bit more now. He's looking for an opportunity to duel with Decay, but instead, he gets a date with sticky bombs and a halt. No accretion follow-up, and Doha is gone down. Rascal must have clipped his wings, and now Decay was forced out of line of sight, but still able to catch Rascal as he barrels around the corner. But 5 health in a dream isn't going to help Dallas right now. They need their Widow to be healthy. And Trihurban now is able to make his way towards the point. It's going to have to be Note coming in from the left-hand side. This is a true off-angle Sigma. So much so that Note might be a little bit isolated here from the backside. What can he do in that corner? Plenty, apparently. Good connection on Trihurban, Matt.
And it's a Transcendence that they use to go in there and try and save Note and push. And they drop their Amp Matrix as well, the Dallas Fuel. But they have no front line. There's no way they can push in here to contest the point.
And there it is. The San Francisco Shock. Their insistence eventually pays off. And they have over 5 minutes to capture 1 tick of point B. It's a good start. And Infrasight is going to provide them with information not only about positioning, but any potential hero swaps before they happen.
Decay's going to need to have the best Widowmaker performance of all time again. Probably to be able to get a draw here is 5 minutes to get 1 tick is an eternity here for the Shock. Especially when you have EMP coming up.
All right, now the Shock know. Crucially, Arns knows where Decay is, so we can either A, take the duel, or B, set up in such a way that that Decay will have to relocate to actually get to see him. You see that Arns has taken a pretty safe lifeline there. Safe lifeline, sorry. Looking through main.
Rascal actually gets hit with sticky grenades going on through, but what the walls does, Mitch, is it allows them to set up a play properly with this EMP here. They know where everybody's at. They can play around this.
All right, well, that's the Transcendence. There is some damage from the Gravitic Flux, but Note's not able to do too much there. Arns goes down, though. He's able to chase the Widow, remove him, but Closer's also missing here. So some of the healing now gone from the Fuel. And Note has seen better days. Guangzhou is hacked right now as well. That's going to be a copied Gravitic Flux from Doha. The Trickoven shrugs off fairly comfortably. Now towards the point, there's a supercharger laid down by Guangzhou. Doha is back in Echo form and he's been removed by Moth at long range. Trickoven's a little bit on his own right now, and Decay's waiting for the peak, and he gets 2 off the back of that infra site. What a way to trigger the relief valve here as the Fuel finally exhale.
Maybe it is doable. You know, at this point, you can come out of the spawn and like stall it for so long. I'm sure anyone who just plays Overwatch and rank knows how long and how heartbreaking it can be to lose a second point here, because it takes about 5 minutes to get a ticket sometimes, it feels like. But now with Dallas, they start to get a few more pickoffs. Mind you, this is like 5 minutes on the clock when this started. Like, we've had one fight really happen, and we're down to 3 minutes coming in. It's not going to be a lot more fights.
Yeah, it feels like
the Shock here
took so much time, Matt, because they'd set up with that infra site, like you pointed out. So they actually played slower.
Which is the right pick, the right call as well.
As it stands, 3 minutes, 1 tick. It's all they need. Halt to the high ground. Trickoven has to look between 90 degrees at 2 different angles right now, and Anson's getting pushed by Crypto. The Canadian wants to run Anson down, but now he's going to hide in his little bunker, his little pillbox he sets up with a poison vine.
Oh, he is so dead.
Yeah, that is what they say is not it. And now Doha can clean up the fight, and this is getting a little dangerous now for the Shock as Doha inches closer to that Blizzard.
So we've had really 2 fights, and we're going to be at like 2 minutes. Dallas will have a rally, which is going to be enormous to stall the point. I mean, they're going to have almost 5 ultimates here coming online, where the Shock have really nothing. So I think what you look at for the Shock, and what you're probably discussing for the Shock, is how do we go into this fight and force ultimates out? Is it pressure on the point? Is it pressure through the high ground? How do we go about this? Because what they want to do is force an action here that gives them the ultimate advantage for what could be a final fight.
Transcendence is in play for San Francisco, but the Fuel are really comfortable in this position now. The Shock need to make something happen here. They don't want to let this one go. And it will be Note sitting back now. Wall is thrown up, and he knows what's happening behind the ice curtain. As the Gravitic Flux drops the Shock, they're forced to use an Immortality Field now, and Anson gets caught out! That's what you get for playing with the rest of your team. Note that well, solo queue players. Sometimes grouping up isn't always the answer. Crimzo loses that Immortality Field.
This is what they wanted, though. I mean, they're gonna go in and they're gonna get them to use the rally. They're trying to get them to use other ultimates here. They transcend here.
Why?
Well, look, if you use Transcendence, you're trying to get them to use more. So they end up using Supercharger out of that, which gives Shock an equal footing in terms of Amp Matrix for the next fight. And they'll have their Blizzard, and they'll have their walls. So, and a Supercharger. So you look at it that way where, okay, it doesn't look great to use the Transcendence, but it was most likely never going to save them in a scenario up on the high ground anyway, because there's really no great spot to use it. Like, if they use Gravitic Flux and you Transcendent the hallway, they can just like back out and just kind of play the low ground. You're never really gaining anything with it there.
Well, Matt, the next fight is going to be a song of Ice and Ice. 2 Blizzards available now, and both teams going to be using the infra sites.
This is a good for the Dallas Fuel, though, this infra site. This will buy you time, and look at that big Gravitic Flux there from Note.
Again, Immortality Field, Note mollified in much the same way. They've lost Guangzhou. How have they lost Guangzhou? Okay, big pivot is down, but Trickoven could be in trouble. Great shield left there by Smurf, but Doha now is overextended. Straight into the Blizzard, the Rascal dropped down. The Shock are happy to part with some of those key ultimates if it means they can catch the Fuel out, and they've done so. Now moving to the point, everything gets leveraged to Guangzhou, who is frozen solid and held in place, and now in overtime we go. Rascal's down, but Anson's chirping in from the high ground. He's found 2. Doha couldn't break the deadlock with the Doomfist, and now Trickoven set up with a Gravitic Flux in tow. Anson picks forward a little bit more now, gaining confidence as the Fuel lose in number. Note is down. Guangzhou crashed on the point. 1 tick was all it was needed. 1 tick will be what's provided for the San Francisco Shock.
And it's not pretty, but they kind of play the ultimate game like I was mentioning. And one of the bigger things there towards the end, which before the fight kicks off we can't really talk about, but we can talk about now, is when Moth uses that Transcendence, he doesn't come back on this end. They go with a Brig, which gives him a better chance of taking that brawl and that close quarter staircase, which really turns the tide.
The Shock just keep forcing that same fight on the high ground. This time, they're able to debate a slight overextension there. But the fact that, Matt, they keep Chohyobin alive with that Blizzard there, I mean, the shield thrown in front of him by Smurf, allows them to convert not only the kill on Gamsu, which occurred just because of how quickly the Shock dived on him, but then they get a kill on the Mei, and you know things going to be over. Now you know that Ants can do whatever he wants set up on that Widowmaker. That was very well done, but down to the wire stuff. I feel like these two teams are still fairly evenly matched when it comes to scenarios like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of these teams have played, I think more impressively, the Dallas Fuel have really risen to the occasion here today against the Shock.
Well, another map in the bag for San Francisco, looking to clean this one up here. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, after this break with more Overwatch, a potential decider scenario as the Shock strive to make their way forward into the semi-finals.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Rank up with America's largest 5G network. Switch to T-Mobile today. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Overwatch League, and the San Francisco Shock look to be replicating another one of their, competitive, but ultimately pretty solid victories against the Dallas Fuel. They chose them, they knew what they were going up against, and I mean, now, knowing that, of course, they have the secret weapon of Ansan on their side, they were more than happy to tussle when it came to the Widow War.
Right. We've talked a lot about Decay and how great he's been on the hit scan, which he has been phenomenal, but I think we need to really start to think about how good of a player Ants is, especially when he's in the lineup now over Striker, who we've heard for a while. Striker's been like training to play like a lot of these hit scan heroes, and that's kind of where the Shock were going to go with it. And now Ants comes in and he's just been lighting it up, playing a lot of those hit scan characters. The only thing, we've seen him play very little Tracer, but like stall scenarios, but really, I mean, his Ashe and Widowmaker have been very strong in this series.
Yeah, he definitely makes me... I kind of feel like he's the opposite to Rascal, because I definitely think Ants is definitely more of a specialist that is still getting used right now in the current meta, especially when there are no hero pools here, so you'd think there's maybe a little bit less chance for specialists to
When would he come out, though?
Well, I mean, it depends. There's always going to be hit scan right now, right? It depends on the hero pool, but now with that one and with Widow or Sombra sort of being the answers that the Shock want to go to. Okay, so what happens if the Shock want to play Mei and Echo? Do we just see Ansan play the Mei, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Or like that's when you kind of think about like Striker coming in, like and play some of those heroes. Like we don't really know. like their plans could have definitely changed, right? Like maybe now Ans has taken on the roles of playing all these hit scan heroes while Striker is going and practicing some other heroes like the Echo, like May, certain heroes in that space.
Who knows? I mean, this next map should be telling. It is going to be Rialto, and it is one where we saw some pretty insane stuff from Dallas yesterday. So
Yeah, they were nice.
It's been a good map for them. We now know that is a map where Ashe gets a lot of traction. Widowmaker can still be played, providing the sight lines are good, both defensively and offensively, depending. Some really long sight lines through point A and then around that midway through the end of point B. So opportunities for that. The Shock have shown that they're able to kind of dish out the strongest comps in what we consider to be the current meta. So they should feel confident going forward. A map like where they've taken on some of the true titans of the league, sometimes literally, and triumphed.
Yeah, and I think what you see on Rialto is like kind of what's been happening just in terms of the general meta overall. And like Widowmaker has spots where she can be a difference maker. What's really powerful though is like these small chokes where you can get like big halts and grab like 2-3 people and then use dynamite and put damage down on everybody, get like Bob really quickly, like manufacture some of that. That's where you see really good use of Ashe on a map like this. It looks like Dallas on defense though, they like Decay on Widow. I mean, that's kind of been their kind of golden bullet, so to speak, right? Of like, let's put Decay on Widow, force them to play a Widow, and hope he pops off. That's kind of where you're looking at now.
Matt, Decay looked really frustrated on the player cams, just sort of coming out of that last map there, like you know, very pronounced reaction to them losing that last map here. So expect to see him really try and double down, and this is where the rubber really hits the road for him now going up against the Shock. It's a level up, arguably, from the Houston Outlaws and everything that comes along with that. We see Rascal again, just sneaks low ground early on. I mean, he'd love to catch the field while they're all grouped up close like this. Those sticky bombs look quite appetizing, as do many of these targets on the fuel side. Gumsu's forced back by Discord, and there it is. Gumsu's forced back by Discord and opens the door for Ansan to find a pick on closer.
And that's huge. No immortality. That's a lot of your healing out of the way with the Baptiste gone, so not a good start for the Dallas Fuel as they lose a few more players.
Okay, good late flank from Doha, though. It actually enables him to get rid of Moth here. Note's able to find some as well. Smurf's still standing. If he goes down here, then the Fuel have actually managed to salvage this fight. The spawn, though, is much closer for San Francisco, and they should get numbers back. There's only 2 players in the vicinity currently for Dallas.
Yeah, so Dallas will be able to actually make it back here. So looks like there's one player up on that high ground. I believe it was Violet who was trying to farm up an Ant Matrix. He's getting dangerously low and he's not able to make it out. So being a little bit too aggressive there, trying to play for that ult.
Yeah, just textbook overextension. Maybe he doesn't realize there are still a couple of Fuel players close by, but that guts the healing for the Shock for the most part. And even though Doha goes down, you've lost your second healer now, so you're just going to have to wait and just take a breath and regroup here. The Shock are making a couple of uncharacteristic errors here.
Now Dallas, they get a few holds. You have a duplicate coming online. You have Inversight as well. Nothing really outside of the Ant Matrix that Violet farms up. As maybe you think about kind of dropping from the high, or using it on the high ground, forcing them back, giving you some more payload control. As see how Violet decides to use it. Yep, there it is. This should allow them to get back onto the cart and get it going.
Crucially, it gives a lot of space for Ansan now to peek out, Matt, since the Dallas Fuel can't really purge from their preferred locations. Doha may have duplicated, but now he's in trouble. Rascal seems confident enough to turn his attention now towards the bulk of the Fuel here, and Garbsu focusing beam. Okay, he's able to get inside the immortality field, but Rascal now turns into Sigma, and this is a great place to switch. A lot of opportunities for Hyperspheres to bounce on around, but Moth goes down to sticky bombs. Rascal does get the Gravitic Flux now. 3 players caught in that, but it's the Transcendence that comes out from the Fuel to answer. Both support ultimates from Dallas, but they're able to stay alive here. They keep the Shock at bay.
You get the hold on the Rascal to keep him there as Ons will get taken out by Doha. So another hold here from the Dallas Fuel. The cart very close though, getting over the line. Is now the Shock, they're left with no ultimates here, Mitch. You know, you might get a Gravitic Flux coming up. Maybe a Transcendence, but Dallas in a position to use Supercharger in their own walls to be able to, you know, combo those together to buy them some time on the overall clock.
Shock move out from the low ground here, and they do pay attention to the positioning of Doha. Shohyobin tries his luck by lobbing a rock. And now the Shock have the high ground. What can they do with this? Ansan pops their infrasight, so does Decay. So both Widows have the information. Crucially, both Echoes know where one another is. Ans doubles back and gets rid of Doha. That's an opener. It's a good one. There's still a Widow threatening right now for the fuel. And Decay is making his presence felt. One shot to Violet cleans him up, and he takes Smurf so low it forces Moth to go for the Transcendence now. This will allow the Shock to get closer, but they're far from done. Supercharger has been exhausted. Immortality Field deployed. That'll run out in a couple of seconds. Smurf wants to push forward now, and Shohyobin gets a Gravitic Flux. He uses the flying element to try and get the high ground position, but Ansan goes down. This is looking good from Dallas, man. Doha pushes forward now. The Shock are running out of numbers, but Decay's down. The Shock get 2 kills. There's only 4 players up for the fuel right now, but San Francisco are desperate to get back to the card. They get close and almost get across the line there. But Gamsu's still standing strong. Rascal's discorded. Matt forced out of that line of sight. Here comes a Wrecking Ball caught inside the Gravitic Flux. This is a problem now for San Francisco. As Smurf gets dropped, and so do the odds of the Shock getting this point.
And this is what happens when you have a lot of these games where you rely on a Widowmaker to get the pickoffs, to get you over the line. A little bit of a Tracer battle here as Ons is able to get one. Not enough though, as Dallas gets a hold before the first point here on Rialto, giving them a perfect opportunity to get a Game 5.
I mean, that's huge. If they can force a control map, Matthew, that may be a big difference maker. They looked much more comfortable and confident when we were on Nepal earlier on. And a map 5 showdown with the Shock. Who doesn't want that? One of the Shock doesn't want that. They'd like it to be done here. It's an unlikely situation to hold the cart before this point. It really doesn't happen that often at all. The last time I remember it most vividly was Vancouver doing it to the Shock at the height of their strength, but much has changed since then.
And especially with the compositions we're seeing from both of these teams, like all it takes is 2 kills from a Widowmaker to get you over this line, right? Like if Decay comes out and kills one, they have to give up that first corner and back up. If he comes out and gets a second one, that basically forces them to fight on where the golden box of victory will be. So it's really on Decay if he plays this Widow to pop off and at least force an advantageous position for his teammates to be able to at least pick up a kill.
Here come the Shock. Answers back on the Widowmaker, and yeah, he'd really have to shut down Decay. Decay gets 5 final blows there. Doha was 7. So in general, Dallas Fuel support line really doing a lot of work, or the DPS line, should I say, doing a ton of work for them. Crimzo finds 3. Moth had a bit of a quiet round there. Not a lot of damage done from him. He was definitely pressured very heavily by that Widow. Decay hoping for a ray of Rascal's luminous forehead to a peak above that building. Doesn't happen. And the Shock are on high alert for Widow shenanigans. The shenanigans. Doha.
This is really all it comes down to. It's just these Widows.
Well, now with that said, it seems a little bit simple when you put it that way, but there's a lot that goes into these Widows finding picks, especially against double shield. Cops! Doha having a picnic, and Answers just drills a hole in his head.
What he was trying to do is like set up like a jump over the wall here, which he would have been able to come behind Smurf, and then they could have pushed through this lower angle. But while lining it up, it's read perfectly by Ons, so that'll give the Shock some time.
Free haircut. I mean, maybe not the one you wanted. The inverse mohawk, not very popular right now, but that's all that France is giving out. So you're stuck with it. It's quarantine. It's hard to get a haircut anyway. If you haven't really got. Rascal sends the sticky bombs in there, but it's kinetic grasp for note that yields a ton of shield to Decay fairly slowly. And Ansan still dealing with shields. Again, not easy for Widows to just manifest pick opportunities here, but he almost finds Doha once more. Body shots, we take those right now. Answers testing the healing reserves of the fuel, and Rascal pushes up, focusing being walked out. He bit off a little bit more than he can chew now, and it's the trade. Decay is down. This might give Ansan a little bit more room, but Crimzo doubles down, Matt.
I was going to say, did he go in a little bit too far? And now, almost like what happened in the opposite, right? Where the Shock used an Amp Matrix and kind of baited in the fuel on King's Row. It's the opposite here as Rascal goes in and gets one, and then it's an Amp Matrix used by Closer, which allows them to get a few kills.
Dallas now staring down the barrel of a map 5. That's right where they want to be here. Knocking the Shock out of the main melee would be huge. And sorry, San Francisco, there's no lower bracket for you this time. Unsun playing extremely safe, but that is about as high value as you're going to get picks like that Can't ask for much more, and Doha has to be careful. Actually has to use his fight cooldown to skitter away. His Arns would have found a second body shot and undoubtedly cleaned him up. Ansan's gone down, but Rascal finds Doha. It's a trade, and Dallas still have a Widow in the fight, but they're playing the high ground.
Yes, it's a really odd spot to play here for the Dallas Fuel. Like, see Decay, like he can't really get any angles here lower. As the Shock, they're just playing on the inside. This is such smart positioning from the Shock, especially with these double shields.
Rascal's able to force out the Immortality Field. That's big. Now the Shock know what their timings are. Win condition being set for them. They know to leap forward now without that in play, and here it is. Gravitic Flux is used. Honestly, Violet got caught in that one as well, but Note is the kill that is found, and now it's a 6v5. Mott goes for the Transcendence, but it's a little bit later. So the San Francisco Shock have a little bit of overlap, where they have way more healing, so it's up to Decay. Can he find a pick? Misses the first shot. Infrasight help, but Ansan has it as well, and the Shock are not providing any opportunities for Decay to get kills here.
They're giving them absolutely no angles. Like, the positioning from the Shock here is so good, playing on the inside of that choke point.
Doha, he's finally burned down, gets a little bit too close to Rascal, and closer falling the Fuel. They're running out of time.
Do you switch off of this if you're Dallas? I would consider it. You just used Infrasight. They're not giving you any angles. I would really consider moving away from the Widow here.
Dallas.
Even going through the Amp Matrix, Mitch, you're not going to get anything with this if they're not giving you any sight lines.
The Shock are in a perfect position, Matt, just to break line of sight, even if there's him. I mean, it might give some free card push, but not enough to get a checkpoint here for Dallas. All right, it's time. Last chance for the Dallas Fuel to stay in this series. 5 seconds remain. The cart is on the move. Gamsu and Doha push around. You see they're focusing beam Choyhoben. Great use of that Immortality Field. Keeps Choyhoben alive, and now he's getting healed up, but it's not fast enough. He's escorted. He's low. Violet's already out of the picture, so it's just Mock's healing that the Shock have to rely on. Time ticking. The Dallas Fuel is so close. They can smell it. They're starting to burn up. Smurfy's low. He pushes ahead of his shield, and that might be his undoing. But Ansan finds closer. Gantu and Closer are both down. Doha is low on help, but still in a position to contribute to the damage. Ansan needs to find another pick. Needs to get rid of Doha here, but Doha's chasing. Ansan's hit with the sticky bombs. He doesn't quite go down, but there it is! Oh! Note gets chased down. Rascal returns. And there it is, the San Francisco Shock get it done.
Wow.
That is a big GG in the chat. And in the final moments there, the Fuel spread too much. Doha chased down the Ansan Sniper Widow, and he wasn't where he was needed, Matt.
He needed to, though. Like, Ans was on that high ground. If they would have left him there uncontested, he would have gotten the pickoffs anyway. As that is such a close series overall, as the Dallas Fuel really put together a great performance today overall. I think Decay was tremendous, like we've mentioned numerous times. Doha as well. Just not enough to beat the Shock.
I mean, San Francisco are able to leverage a lot of this. My camera's just messed up. San Francisco are able to leverage a lot of the same elements that Dallas have, but it's the consistency in which they're providing results is huge. I have to say the Batiste play looked so good from Violet, really. That clutch Immortality Field towards the end of that round, keeping Choyhoben alive. Like, you've lost your Batiste, and your Sigma is discorded and low health. You only have a Zenyatta without Transcendence to heal them up. What do? You use the battlefield to your advantage. You keep him alive, and Ansan was almost dead. He was like 1 HP after getting hit by those sticky bombs. But I mean, you could just see how desperate Doha was to finish that kill, and it turned out to be their undoing.
And the fight starts off with a kill from Decay onto Violet playing the Batiste, and they're still able to use the defensive spot to their advantage to keep it going.
I mean, what a fantastic game. And these two teams have been playing each other close over the season so far. But the San Francisco Shock able to come up with the goods. That is just huge. And yeah, Matt, let's talk about our player of the match presented by Xfinity. And for consistency and excellence over the course of the series, this council sees fit to reward Choyhoben, especially for that Sigma play.
Yes, Sigma was really strong throughout the series. A lot of times, it was Ans or Rascal picking up a lot of the kills, but Choi does a tremendous job just putting down the damage and the chokes. Great shield placement, some good gravitic fluxes throughout the series.
Yeah. Very, very impressive stuff from San Francisco, and they move on. They move on to the semi-finals now, where they will play the winner of Los Angeles Valiant and the Paris Eternal. Either way, we get a pretty interesting matchup one way or another. Paris Eternal, of course, managing just to barely stave off a reverse sweep yesterday.
That was so close.
I mean, they're feeling they're bruised up. You know, Boston got in there, started swinging haymakers, gone for the fence, and almost managed to get the job done. So San Francisco get what they wanted there, Matt. They choose Dallas, but you know, if you go back before, I guess we saw Decay pop off yesterday. Do you think this ends up being so close?
It probably does. I mean, with how Dallas played today and the use of the Widowmaker and whatnot, they looked very strong. I think the series probably would have still remained close. Where I think the Shock, they weathered the storm today. I think it'll be interesting as we progress through the melee if other teams start to pull out the Widowmaker against them.
So let's have a look at our updated bracket now as well, just to give you guys a graphical representation of what just occurred. It was quite a graphic series in general from the Widowmaker play, and also echoes. Both teams are looking really good, and Dallas Fuel continuing now to come closer to a boil. We don't use victories against San Francisco as like a benchmark for teams being good in the league, of course. That is something that we reserve only for the very, very best. And Dallas, look, they made their way into the top 8. You know, they did at the lowest seeding, but they give San Francisco a very close game, almost making it a map 5. And if we see a map 5, you know, if we see some sort of like Ryan, was it Ryan Sigma? Ryan Orisa play again, who knows how that goes. But we now have a chance, Matt, to get some words from the victors. Today, the San Francisco Shock get to write a history. We're going to be here with Zoe and Moth.
Thank you so much, Mitch and Matt, and welcome to our show, Moth.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, of course, congratulations. That was a very, very close series and quite exciting to watch. So before we're discussing what we just saw, I would like to get your thoughts on your game plan in general coming into this. What was the game plan after watching them play yesterday?
Yeah, we expected a lot of the same stuff we saw yesterday. They played a lot of the double shield poke with like Echo +1 sniper, and that's what they played today too, so we were pretty prepared. And for the maps we picked, I think we had good strategies in general. Yeah, Nepal didn't go our way. It was a bit of a slow start for us, but after that we picked it back up.
Right, so why do you think it actually ended up being such a close one, or did you expect that?
I did not expect it to be this close. Dallas was definitely a dark horse coming into this tournament, but yeah, Decay and Doha definitely popped off again and clutched out a bunch of fights for them, so ended up making it a very close match.
Now, you got fully held on Rialto, and then it was your time to defend. What was the thought process going into this? What was the main focus? What did you feel like is the biggest threat from their side?
For our attack, it felt like they just kept getting key pickoffs from their DPS whenever, like we didn't get very many clean fights on our attack in. For our defense, we're always really strong in those high pressure situations, so we just played our game, did the same as we did in scrims, and
now for your semi-final game, it's going to be either the Valiant or the Paris Eternal. Which of the two teams do you prefer, and which of the two teams do you think is more likely to actually make it into the semi-finals?
I'm not sure. I think that's going to be a really close match too. I personally would rather play Paris because one of our coaches from last year, 9K, is coaching that team now, and we haven't played them yet. That would be really exciting for us. But yeah, Valiant versus Paris could be really close. Paris came out a little bit weaker yesterday, and it'll be exciting to see how Valiant stacks up to them.
Yeah, and that's going to go down at the end of the day. Moth, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to hear from you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So we're heading into a very quick break, and then afterwards we are back with the next match here in the quarterfinals. Melee. It's going to be the Atlanta Reign and the Florida Mayhem going up against each other.